K on our members only Discord. A while ago, Luke asked folks to send in video ideas to react to, and I thought this might fit the bill since Luke has reacted to Bellular before. World of Warcraft is one of the biggest MMOs, if not the biggest MMO in the world, but apparently if you're a brand new player, it's virtually impossible to complete the leveling experience because the gear scaling is totally broken. Good thing Blizzard doesn't sell level boosts or anything, right? And this intrigued me because I have actually tried playing World of Warcraft from scratch because I have some friends from college that play it a lot and have some high level characters and stuff. So I was like, ooh, I could get into it and play with them, but I'm gonna have to start at zero. I'm gonna have to start from scratch. So this is right up my alley. Let's see what's happening. This, of course, is from Bellular Warcraft's dedicated channel. 3 weeks ago, I played WoW on a fresh account. It was hell.
This is Milk Genius. He's a Tauren mage. He was born to suffer. Except things did not quite go to plan. You see, his suffering actually started much earlier than we intended. So let me explain this whole thing. Milk Genius is the first character on a fresh account. Matt and our team is going to use him for some upcoming challenge runs of the game. But, well, challenge actually found him first. That's because just getting to level 80 was an absolute nightmare. Let me tell you, we were shocked to find out how bad WoW really is for new players. It is literally unplayable in ways that we did not expect, and I am not joking.
I mean, I feel a little vindicated because when I started it and tried playing it, like you can't play WoW and tell people that you didn't have fun, you know? Like you can't do that. Otherwise people would be like, you don't like WoW? How dare, like you're an idiot. But dude, when I was trying to play it to get into it for my buddy so we could play together, I was shocked at how unapproachable it was. Like I had the benefit of having somebody, you know, with me that was trying to explain it and make it make sense. But it was also just like the deeper into it you got, the more you felt like, am I just doing the mindless grinding just so I can catch up to the cool stuff? Like, I don't know. It was very, very difficult. So this is going to be interesting to hear. I'm excited to hear the details.
Milk Genius had a normal time at first. Pleasant even. Lots of people told him to do things like incinerate living creatures around the Dragon Isles, and he did so with a smile. His barrier was impenetrable. He blew up enemies in a few casts at most. Then something changed. As he leveled and mastered new spells, he actually got weaker. Pyroblast felt like tepid air blast. He might have done more damage blowing kisses than throwing fireballs. It felt ridiculous. And then enemies chunked him with every swing. And before poor Milk Genius knew what was happening, he found himself needing everything in his arsenal to survive. Burst, Time Warp, Ice Block, all just to take on the local wildlife. The same wildlife, the very same wildlife that he had just been exploding with a simple glance just a few hours before. Now, of course, as an experienced WoW player, you're probably familiar with slowing down as you level, but I promise you, you have not seen anything this bad. We have not seen anything this bad because we just hadn't done this in a while. And by now, it really is different. And this all made leveling a living nightmare. WoW felt like less of a well-designed video game. Fighting one mob without combustion was pointless. Pulling two at the same time meant certain death. It took every mage spell in the book to kill named NPCs, and usually in a few tries. This was not fun. It was
It was not fun. Dude, this is why, you know, I think we all know where this is going, because Blizzard does have some fixes and does have solutions to this. So we all know where it's going and what this is going to turn out to be. But it's also just part, I mean, it's kind of, I guess, expected when you have a game that's as old and storied and complex as WoW is. I'm sure it's a nightmare to balance anything like this. I mean, it's got to be a disaster. But if it's just like a simple algorithmic leveling thing where it's just about, you know, based on basic multipliers and stuff to health, damage output, damage intake, that type of thing, you'd think it'd be something that they could adjust, unless they don't want to.
Somewhere between a pointless slog and just being insanely frustrating. And this is in the hands of a good player, someone with many years of experience. what do you think would happen
Yeah, not hours of experience, years of experience.
to a new player? A new player who would die trying to 1v1 a regular mob, say a boar. They would probably quit the game. It's just hard to imagine anyone bothering with this. Even if they survived, getting weaker over time is kind of the opposite of what an RPG should be. There's essentially, in my view, no way they would stick with it. Not unless they had a whole bunch of friends boosting them and getting them towards the endgame. And the sad news for Milk Genius is it actually got worse before it got better. Hours of struggling later, he finally reached Orgrimmar. He'd done the non-combat quests where he could. Now they called him to set the newest continent ablaze. Yes, he was being called to Kaz Algar. Without a well-timed save from a hunter who just happened to be there, he actually would, well, maybe still be dying from that Nerubian lord you've got to fight in Dalaran in the intro. You know, over and over and over again, because it was actually just that bad as a fight. And remember, you need to beat that boss to finish the scenario, and that means that as a new player, there is no way to continue. It was genuinely impossible alone, and that's because Milk Genius was a victim. He was a victim of scaling and how it's essentially broken for the game as it is being played by new players right now.
Real question though. I mean, there's people like me who might try to get into it for the first time because we want to get in with our friends, or because, you know, we're looking for just a new social game, quote unquote new, you know. And I would have played WoW back in the day, but I grew up in a household when I was younger that called WoW, you know, the work of Satan. So it wasn't really something we would have played or been allowed to play, however much we would have wanted to. But you know, there's people like me out there that I feel like are kind of a niche example, but I can't imagine there's that many people who are trying to get into WoW for the first time. You know, like, are there really that many people trying WoW for the first time? The game is huge, but WoW is one of those like institutions. Like it's such a big established thing at this point that it feels like everybody who wants to play WoW is playing WoW. You know, and so there's not much like mystery left. You know, it's not like people are just being like, whoa, what's this new game? I wonder, you know. It's an MMO, it's a dying gem. I mean, I would love to know the stats and like player numbers, player growth. I would just be fascinated to see how that's doing now. I'm playing right now, says Captain Dammit. Yeah, see, you're in it. I tried very briefly, got horribly confused and quit again, says C4 Ghost. WoW is not a new gen friendly graphics nor gameplay. I do think that that's a bit of a turnoff for some people. This is going to be triggering to some, but I do think that the average like teenager, preteen, if they are looking for a game to get in with their friends, they're going into like Roblox and stuff. They're playing Fortnite and Roblox. I don't think they're jumping into WoW, even though they might have more fun with WoW long term. Like, yeah, it looks like a game from 2005. Exactly. Like, and it is still at the end of the day. I'm just put off by the subscription. Dude, when they bought Activision Blizzard King, when Microsoft did, a lot of people thought that they were going to remove the subscription fee. It was going to be part of Game Pass, or they were going to bundle, do like Game Pass WoW. And it was a specific version of Game Pass that gave you access to WoW or something. And they were going to cut the regular subscription. I don't know. At this point, it's such a huge thing for the people that play it. It's just part of their monthly budget, you know. Like, it's hardcore. Dylan says, dude, I'm still playing Pirates of the Caribbean online. That's goated. That's hardcore. I respect it.
And the sad thing for Milk Genius is there was just about nothing he could do about it. So, how did we get into this mess? How did this happen?
Just make enough gold, you never pay for a subscription. I guess that's true. Yeah, if you can just grind it out. But realistically, don't like BS me, because I genuinely don't know. How much do you have to grind to get enough gold to pay for the subscription? Like, how many hours are we talking about? Are we talking like, oh, it's 10 hours of play to pay for your subscription? Or is it like you need 150? Like, what are we talking about? Because if it's like, oh, you got to just casually put in like 150 hours a month or 200 hours a month to pay for your subscription, 40 hours a week, Jesus. I hope that's not true. Yeah, I mean, unless you're doing things like boosting other players. Okay. But either way, like, you're putting in so much time into WoW, it's basically a part-time job in order to pay for it itself. Like, just maybe 20 hours if you follow a guide. Okay, 20 hours in a month to pay for the subscription itself. I don't know, man. This is so crazy to me. It's so crazy.
Let's break it all down then. Our actual problem here was gear. On the Isle of Dorn, the quest reward from the impossible intro quest really did prove that. And that's because the same slot went from plus 40 stamina to plus 1295. It's quite a lot more. It's an extra 25k HP. It's a 16% increase from just one item. That's out of 14 slots. And this was not just health either. This slot went from 20 int to 441, plus 3% crit and 1% haste.
Jesus.
That was all from one single hat. Okay, what actually happened here? Well, Milk Genius had actually out-leveled so fast that he drastically outgrew his gear, and it was nigh on impossible to keep him with a set of gear that actually fit his level. Most of his equipment was so bad that he may as well have been naked, which is a sad state of affairs for poor Milk Genius. And of course, that's on a fresh account, without the warband buff that gives you up to like 25% more XP. And of course, this was a fresh account. That means no heirlooms. Basically, this is the stock experience where there are really no pointers or explainers. And that means that leveling is just too fast for how Blizzard's game actually awards people gear.
It is a little funny because it's like, hey, the leveling is all screwed up. And the problem is that you level too fast, so you can't get equipment and armor that keeps up with you. It's just a very interesting reversal. Because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I need the WoW experts in chat to correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of what he's saying is that the enemies' damage, health, stats, like all of that stuff is calculated based off of what your level is. But your gear is what actually buffs you and gives you like the increased health and the increased damage output, intelligence, whatever it is. And so if your level is high, but your gear is low, it's actually worse than just having a low level with your low gear. Because if you had the low level, the enemies wouldn't scale to you. You got it? Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting. I love this kind of like the nitty gritty nuance of how the systems work. It's very interesting to me.
Why? Well, campaign quests are designed with a specific curve in mind. You'd get a few pieces in every zone as you would level up. Then you would hit max with a full quest set of gear. Some pieces would be a few item levels lower. That's for a fairly obvious reason. You would maybe get one piece of gear at level 64 instead of at level 69, but that's not really a big deal. Job done, you've hit max level. And that's what happens because Dragonflight, and of course later on War Within, have got their continents designed for a 10 leveling span, not a 60 or 70 leveling span. That's why this breaks. Players drop into Dragonflight at level 10. They then finish the campaign somewhere in the 40s. And that's when they essentially run out of easy gear, which leads to this situation. This poor soul was still wearing gear from his 30s and 40s. He wasn't level 50, he wasn't level 55, no, he was in his 60s. And this is not like WoW Classic. You see, in Classic, wearing a 15 green was fine for like 20 levels. Gear scaling is absolutely nuts now, and that's the key difference between now and Classic. Every slot was hundreds of item levels below where it should have been. Thousands of stats behind. And you may say, just go get some gear, bro, that's the problem. Easy. Well, Milk Genius wishes it was easy.
Yeah, don't you think Milk Genius would have done that if he could? Damn it, man. Think. Of course he would try to do that. It's very common to get to a certain level, like 80, but you still have level 50, a level 50 ring. It was one of the things that was interesting about... I'm blanking on the name. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. The ARPG that launched last year that like blew up. Big Diablo 4 competitor. Path of Exile 2. I remembered it before chat saved me. I remembered it officially. I did it all by myself. Thank you guys. Yeah, PoE 2, like that scaling I felt was really, really smooth. But I mean, again, fast forward the game 20 years and things may change.
Some side quests drop gear. The odd world quests do as well. But even if you understand that system, which again, if you're a new player, you probably won't, there's no reliable way to replace garbage. As an example, when I say garbage, say, imagine that plus 10 strength belt that you picked up at level 25. Now, if you're thinking, just buy bind on equipped gear then, Well, we thought about that as well. BOEs below level 80 are unbelievably expensive. Many of you probably know why. It's because the only people buying them are giga-rich transmog hunters who want to fill out their set. And that's an economic context that poor Milk Genius and, of course, every new player to the game won't exactly be in.
Yeah, fair point. It's like, it's why also, I remember in college, I had a professor that had done a bunch of work like analyzing World of Warcraft accounts because there were a bunch of articles being written at the time about it. Like, because World of Warcraft's economy is crazy complicated. Like, it's fascinating. Like, there's entire PhD students whose like theses have been on elements of the World of Warcraft economy. It's crazy complex and nuanced and very, very cool. But yeah, it's always been interesting to me as well.
You see, with today's leveling speeds, you'll only have a few thousand gold by the time you hit this problem. And if you're in the know, you won't really want to spend that. As an example, just think about how expensive enchants and crafting are up at max level. That means that spending any money in gear before level 80 is a huge mistake. But hang on a second. You may be wondering why you don't have that problem. Why you are not like the poor victim of today's video, Milk Genius, and the legions, the probably hundreds of thousands of potential new players that are bouncing off World of Warcraft every month. You and Milk Genius ain't the same. You'll have heirlooms. Those heirlooms will scale with level. And even if you don't, you can queue for every single dungeon with Chromie time. Or perhaps you'll only be leveling your characters during time walking weeks, where you can just spam dungeons with shorter queues and get loads of gear. That's not what a new player will be doing. What we're talking about today is a new player problem. Now, you can technically avoid it if you run dungeons. Scaling is a little different there, but hey, you will get some gear. But the DPS queue times for Dragonflight dungeons are prohibitively long, and you're trapped in the Dragon Isles until level 70 anyway. So, if you ask me, asking a new player to AFK in a queue is not much of a solution to this problem. And if you're not convinced that this is a problem, let me put it this way. Blizzard putting WoW on sale like this is basically them trying to fill a bathtub. But what they, well, probably realize but have not yet acted on is that bathtub, well, you know, doesn't really have a plug in it. So all of those new players they chuck into World of Warcraft simply just drain away.
Yeah, that's my thing. I have World of Warcraft. Like I said, I've tried to get into it, but I bounced off. And I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one, because I don't have a bunch of heirlooms. I don't have a lot of experience with it. Like, played Classic when that first came out. We put some time into that, but I've tried to get into just the vanilla experience from scratch, and it's not super welcoming. I mean, it's also just a massive game, so it's kind of confusing as a new player, because you're like, am I bouncing off of it because I don't understand it, or is there some mechanical thing going on? And as he's explaining, it's more of a mechanical thing, but when you're a new player and you don't understand exactly how it's going wrong, it just feels like something's off, and you're like, maybe I'm stupid, maybe the game's breaking, I don't know. Either way, I'm not having that much fun, so I'm gonna go do something else. And then you lose the player. You know, either way, whatever the cause is, something's going wrong. Gilgamesh says, I bounced off as well. Me and my friend really tried. Yeah, you paid for it though? Well, yeah, but they get a chunk of change when you buy it, sure, but they get the biggest chunk of change when you are sticking with it for months or years and it becomes your habit. Like, that's where they make the real money. You know, $30, $20 here and there. Yeah, it's nice to get the chunk of change, sure, but they'd much rather keep you in the vortex, you know?
Okay, look, I've got to pull the handbrake and do a crazy power turn, but trust me, I'm actually going somewhere with this. It's relevant. The Final Fantasy XIV director wrote blogs early in the game's life, and he talked about something similar. There was a quest in A Realm Reborn. A few of you may know it. It asked you to get a full set of item level 5+ gear, and right beside that quest giver was an NPC vendor. That vendor sold the last item that you needed, a piece of leg armor. And the game explains all of this stuff to you. But here's what happened. Even with all of that, their stopping point data showed something different. The data showed this was the quest most quitting players stopped at. Which is kind of crazy, right? Such a simple barrier, yet it kind of destroyed their player signups. Now they ended up changing this. They changed it to be more clear. When they changed, it actually worked. More people stayed. You see, players don't like being confused. They don't like feeling confused. And in this case...
True. Well, it's also, there's, in social experience games, I don't know if this is a component of specifically what he's talking about, but when there's like a social component to it, it's also kind of a shame or an embarrassment where people are like, if I'm bouncing off this game, is it because I don't understand it? Is it because I'm stupid? Is it because I'm messing up? Or is it the game? Am I like, what's going on? And so instead of like risking feeling dumb or looking dumb by asking somebody, they just shut down and don't engage anymore, and they go play something else that they know, that they understand, you know. MMOs are usually overwhelming as hell too. Yeah, no, they're just so massive and there's so much. It's why like the fear with a lot of them is that if you don't get in at the beginning, you're missing out, and then by the time you might rejoin in a year, you're just so far behind everybody else. It's not worth it, you know.
It's new players who have not put hours into an MMO. They're gonna feel confused real easy. MMOs are overwhelming. They won't put up with the sorts of bullshit that you and I will put up with basically all the time. Hey, we're WoW players, we're used to it. But they won't put up with that. Now, I do not have access to Blizzard's stopping point data, but I can promise you this. They have tons of people who finish the Dragonflight campaign, they hit the wall that Milk Genius hit, and then they get confused. The campaign stops giving them gear. They find that they cannot kill mobs. They also can't find side quests. They get confused. They don't like feeling confused. They try to Google things about the game, but Google's a mess. WoW data is just spread across lots of different websites.
Well, and it's tough because a lot of the resources you'll find, and I encountered this, it's being written by people who really know what they're doing, who have been playing WoW for years and years and years, and are playing usually on really high level characters or very, you know, aged and well-established accounts. So they're not writing articles on how to overcoming what, you know, Milk Genius is experiencing, because they haven't experienced it. They don't know that that's a problem. So there's not really a guide to fix it. So, you know, if you Googled this problem, you might just get an article that says, well, equip some heirlooms, and you'll call it good. And it's like, well, I can't really do that.
Ones that are useful, but often high cognitive load to use. So what happens is they simply quit. I think in doing these sales, Blizzard is pouring time and effort into finding water for the bucket, but they haven't perhaps realized or acted on the fact there's a giant hole in the bottom of that bucket. But I do have some good news. It's not all hopelessness, because our boy Milk Genius found a way out. You see, once Milk Genius put on that new bit of gear, the hat that I described that gave him thousands more stats, everything changed. His new hat made him so strong that he could kill 3 quest mobs at the same time when he popped all of his cooldowns. Not very impressive, but it was a massive difference. It was moving from playing the game feeling impossible to feeling technically possible. Now, questing was still extremely slow. Gear came in drips and drops, and some slots just felt impossible to replace. So eventually, Matt, who, by the way, was the man behind Milk Genius, he ended up just giving up. He was tired of pretending to be a new player. He wanted a way out. Now, someone suggested he log out for 2 whole months, and that in doing so, the gear update function of the game would appear and give him a starting set. That was, of course, not very appealing, so instead, he learned tailoring and he just went and made all of his own gear. And this worked by...
That's freaking clever, though. They're like, literally just go away for 2 months and come back, and the game will just give you something as a consolation prize, basically. That's funny. That's funny. Huh. Interesting.
Pure luck. Cloth drops came from mobs anyway, but say a plate wearer needing to go and mine ore, well, that is a whole different story. Anyway, over the next level or two, he was able to craft enough gear to catch up, to make Milk Genius strong. Turned out that Matt's game knowledge just got him back on track because he knew how to use the crafting system. That meant that now he could level up to 80 without having to pull individual mobs one at a time. And with that problem solved, he could start in the real task: suffering, playing at max level, which was the entire point of Milk Genius's existence. Now, part of all of this was actually fun, to be clear. Squeezing out every little bit of damage to kill mobs is kind of satisfying, and I'm not making this video to say that leveling should just be one-shotting mobs for 80 levels while you live in some sort of fugue state putting Doritos into your mouth. No. Players do need to learn how to play, and there's times where old Milk Genius was forced to learn how to play. But what Milk Genius went through is not what Blizzard intends. I mean, a few pieces of gear, doubling your health, doubling your damage, that is not healthy for the game. It's clearly not intended. I mean, we're in a situation where anyone who does not know exactly where gear comes from will actually struggle. And remember, we're talking about new players, who by definition do not know things. Now, if they don't
literally, I mean, yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
know how to use their full kit, say maxing out their cooldowns or choosing a specific talent build, well, then this game, World of Warcraft, is genuinely unplayable. And if World of Warcraft is genuinely unplayable for new players, it's maybe a little bit tricky for Blizzard to actually grow World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I mean, it's not lack of interest. There's multiple people in chat who are saying I've tried and I bounced off. I'm saying I've tried and I've bounced off. So clearly, like, there's people that want to get into World of Warcraft that would like to have that game to get into, but are bouncing off. And either way, like, that's a problem. Whether it's because of level scaling, there's not enough armor drops and equipment drops, or that, you know, maybe Blizzard's just trying to sell a solution, whatever it is. Either way, something's going wrong, you know? Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We'll yeah, the full links and everything I'll share. Yeah.
Blizzard had a solution for this, but the funny thing is they, well, actually just took it right out of the game. You see, the Winds of Mysterious Fortune event dropped bags with bonus gear, and that bonus gear scaled to your level. Basically, it operated just like bags from doing random dungeons, but now, of course, it's gone. And what the removal of this does is kind of screw over new players who basically bought the game in the recent sale. Because if they bought the game and maybe didn't hit level 80 in time, they could get completely slammed by the gear drought and them just not understanding where gear comes from, especially because when they signed up to the game, it came from the Winds of Mysterious Fortune event. Now, Blizzard could overhaul the scaling here. You know, simply lock systems designers in a room with spreadsheets and force them to fix it, to make the gear curve less sharp. But we all know that's probably a waste of time, that doing so would probably jeopardize the already delicate balance of the game, because every time Blizzard changes scaling, there are hosts of unintended consequences. So let's think about the simple way. And the simple way is to make sure players get more gear. Fairly easy. Basically, it's to bake those bonus gear bags in permanently for new players, or to do something that they actually did in the past. You see, in Mists of Pandaria, vendors sold full sets of leveling greens. You could actually just buy them to make sure you were ready. So if you add that, and then add a quest pointing players to that, then, problem solved. If you want to be really lazy, well, just drop a full set of leveling gear on characters every 10 levels. Make it a quest reward. I think that would feel bad, but
it's kind of what like Monster Hunter did. You remember when Monster Hunter Monster Hunter Wild? No, it's Worlds. Too many W words. Monster Hunter World did Iceborne, and when Iceborne dropped, of course, they didn't know whether you were getting into the expansion for the first time or if you were getting into it after grinding the end game like crazy. And so what they did is they had this like starter armor set that they basically handed to you that was something crazy like 60 defense, like, you know, starter gear is like 1 defense and 1 attack, like it's very, very basic, but the starter set for the expansion was so crazy powerful. It made you automatically able to just jump in, and it brought everybody to a level playing field even if you didn't grind out a ton of the early game. And funnily enough, I have a friend who bought the like complete edition of the game and got the end game like armor set, and then was thoroughly confused why he was trouncing all of the early game monsters and everything. it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. Yeah, the Guardian set, that's what it was called. Yeah. Yeah. Is it an expansion if it doesn't have cracked gear? Well, it's with that, it's, you know, the understanding I think for players is it's easy enough to grasp that this is for the end game thing, the expansion. This is not for you to grind against like the starter monsters, you know, the starter Anjanath. Like that's just not what you're gonna do. It's not what you're gonna do. So I think that is bad gear. The DLC monster is gonna whip people who use that gear. Well, it's not really a gear that you're supposed to use through the whole expansion. It's like, you use this if you don't have anything else and you just want to play with your friends in the expansion and just jump right into it. But yeah, definitely you're going to be crafting different stuff. But yeah, there are solutions to this issue that it sounds like they've already made over the last 20 years. They just have to repackage it and give it to new players to just be able to get some new armor drops and equipment drops more regularly.
You know what? If Blizzard are having players abandon the game in droves, even though it's solving a nuanced problem with a humongous sledgehammer, at least the problem would be solved, and we would not have the player attrition that I'm fairly sure we have with new accounts. Now, at any rate, we know that a longer term, that a bigger systemic solution is actually coming here. Holly Longdale has talked about true change to the new player experience. That
I remember them talking about that. Was it like a year and a half ago when they did BlizzCon or something? They said, we're going to overhaul the new player onboarding experience, and we want to make it so new players can come in and get acclimated and onboard without, you know, the crazy amounts of confusion that can happen. So I remember them talking about doing this, but I guess they still haven't done it.
That cannot come soon enough. But if it is going to be a while, I think Blizzard should do something about gear acquisition. Because, like, look, we were honestly shocked by how horrible this was to play. I wonder if you're someone who hangs out in mentor chat, what your experience is like, seeing just the problems that new players have. At any rate, I would love to see the stop data to see basically what Yoshi P shared in that blog all those years ago about FF14. But of course,
I mean, I would hope that game directors and stuff at Blizzard are regularly going back and trying the game on vanilla accounts to see what it's like. You know, like, wouldn't you think that that would be normal, that you would just go in and be like, what's this like for a new player? Let's just go in and try it, especially for a game like this that is like scaling so heavily. But I don't know. Do they even care about this, about fixing the game? I mean, they think they genuinely want more players. They want more engagement. They want people to come in and stay in. Like, with games like this, they have a very, very committed player base, without a doubt. But more players is good. Like, you want more players to come in. And from a business perspective, that's also always good. If you can get more players, that's going to be good for the game. So they want to grow it. They don't want to let it just die slowly. But I think the other thing, like he mentioned, whenever you do major systemic changes to a game that is so ridiculously complex, you're going to break things. You might fix one issue, but you might make 5 more. And I think that's the fear, is that if they change some of the scaling stuff, you're going to fix one thing, but break 15 others. And it's going to be a disaster. You know, it's going to be just a total disaster if you are not careful. Yeah, I think that there are solutions, but I will not pretend to know how crazy complicated it would be to pull off. I just posted in chats, both of them, the link to that Bellular video. You should definitely go and subscribe and everything so that you get notified of all of that. You can get notified of all of his latest content. That's specifically his World of Warcraft account, so you know, worth checking out there. Does a lot of great coverage and always has really interesting insight into the industry. So go show him some love. Show him some love for sure. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
So if you're not aware, Ubisoft, they're the ones that kind of kickstarted the whole stop killing games thing, which is a little funny when you look at it in the context of what we're going to talk about today. Because what happened was, of course, as described here in this PC Gamer article that you can see here. Let's see. So Stop Killing Games advocates for increased regulations to prevent game developers and publishers from shutting down games after official support for them ends at Ubisoft's annual shareholder meeting. The question was posed in the context of Ubisoft's online racer, The Crew, the shutdown of which became the catalyst for the Stop Killing Games initiative. As you can see here, going back in April of 2024, and it basically was a response to The Crew being shut down completely, rendering the 10-year-old racing game unplayable due to, it said, server infrastructure and licensing constraints. And that kind of kickstarted this whole movement. So at this general shareholders meeting, which if you don't know, this is basically just where executives go sit in like a room in front of a bunch of investors and some employees, and they answer questions about it. Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, the man himself, he sat up there and answered some of these questions. And one of the questions he was asked was about Stop Killing Games, which is a little funny. It's why I do, honestly, they did a pretty good job with this shareholder meeting. The investors, I mean, like they did not pull punches. They came out kind of swinging. Like one person at one point started like kind of low-key yelling at Yves Guillemot over the like the share price plummeting over the last decade or so, which was a little funny. But I would just play you the audio of him answering this. But again, he's French and he's being live translated.
The company was not found liable for any of the claims that were taken against the company for misconduct.
Oh, that sounds like a fun section to discuss. But as you can tell, it's kind of dry. The dialogue is dry. The performance is dry. So we'll rely on some snippets. They were asked about, some of the allegations of misconduct, which is what he's answering there, which is a subject for a whole other video as well. But as you can see here, he was asked about Stop Killing Games. As noted by GameFile, Guillemot was asked whether he supported the petition, whether players own a Ubisoft game when they purchase it, and how Ubisoft plans to ensure its games remain playable after support is discontinued. Dude, the balls to ask like the CEO of Ubisoft to just be like, hey, so when I buy your product, do I actually own it? Or do you side with like your employee who was saying gamers might need to get comfortable with not owning anything? Like, what do you think of that? I respect the hell out of these people that just got right up in there and asked the questions. However awkward it may be, they just got in there and asked the question. You got to respect it. Guillemot initially responded by defending the amount of support Ubisoft provides for its games at present. Regarding the petition, I would do it in a French accent, but that would be distasteful. We operate in a market, which is true. We're on a planet. And when we release a game, we provide a lot of support for that game. We also provide a lot of services to make sure the game is accessible and remains playable 24/7. Guillemot also stated that players and buyers are forewarned when a Ubisoft game is going to be shut down, and that the Crew, specifically Ubisoft, offered its successor, the Crew 2, on sale for €1 for a fortnight to provide the original, or prior to the original game's shuttering. For just €1, they got to buy the next version. €1. It's not a lot of money to be able to continue playing a game. I mean, you're creating a problem, then you're selling them the solution. I mean, if you gave it away for free, that'd be fine. I could be okay with that. One thing that makes me wonder about it, so with the Crew specifically, if you don't know the Crew, in the Crew, there's like a crap ton of course, name brand vehicles, okay? Whether you're talking about like Ferrari or Porsche or Jeep or Lamborghini or whatever. And as a result of this, there are licensing deals that take place. And I remember when this first went down back in April of last year, we talked about this a good amount, because what Ubisoft basically pointed the finger to for a lot of the Crew stuff being shut down was because their licensing agreements with some of these car companies were expiring. So they couldn't continue to sell the game, which is, I mean, that's an issue of the negotiations to begin with. Like, I don't think you should negotiate licensing deals that have an end date for a product you're selling to somebody. It's a similar thing that actually happened with Mafia 3. If you don't know, Mafia 3, when it launched, had a bunch of like Southern music from that time, even though it was a fictionalized version of New Orleans. They had actual historical music, such as old Elvis music. And when I think it was 5 years hit, I think it was 2021, their licensing deal for that music expired. And so they updated Mafia 3 and they removed all the Elvis music. It was quite depressing because at one time, Mafia 3 had one of the best soundtracks ever. You could just drive around in that game, even though it's bland as hell. You could just drive around listening to Elvis on the radio. It was goated, man. It was really cool. But because of how they negotiated the licensing deal, they lost the music and had to cut it out. That seems insane to me. I don't think you should negotiate deals. Like, if you can't have the music in the game forever, just don't put the music in the game. Like, I just don't like the idea that you're putting something in a game and you're like, yeah, so you bought the game, but you lose this after a little while. Like, that just is so dumb to me. It's insane. And it's a similar thing with The Crew and with these other games that use licensed vehicles. It seems that there was some negotiation, if they're telling the truth, which this does kind of make sense to me, that they probably did negotiate a deal. Hey, you can use the Aventador for 10 years in your game, and then no more. You don't get to sell the game anymore. That's probably honestly what happened. And then Ubisoft just didn't see it as a big deal. So like, yeah, we'll just shut down the game at that point and get everybody to buy the second game for more money. Like, makes sense how they could think that way. And I think what happened was they did that. And the reason why, I'm guessing they still had to sell it for $1 or €1. A lot of contracts like this, as we've talked about them on stream and stuff, they tend to have some verbiage of like maybe the brand like Lamborghini or Porsche has some agreement that you can't give away their product and can't give away their car because that might make it feel like it's cheap and not luxury or something. So they can't give away the game that contains the cars for free. They have to sell it for something. That might be why. Otherwise, I'm like, just give away The Crew too and get people to spend money on microtransactions there. But if they're selling it, I'm guessing it's probably some sort of contract loophole or something. But anyway, it's not really important. The important point is that they sold gamers a game, and they say it's because of licensing deals that expired that made it so they had to remove the game from existence, which feels bad. Man, feels bad. Thank you guys for the super chats, by the way. I'll read those in just a minute. But he continues on. Okay. I'm not sure Guimon's conflation of The Crew 2 as a sequel and a continuation of the original game's service is justified here, since the two are separate games. I think, again, if they set it up this way, where they always from the beginning had the idea that when the licensing deals expire, we shut down The Crew and we move everybody to The Crew 2, which has a fresh set of licensing deals for another decade. And then we'll do the same thing when The Crew 3 comes around. And that's just their idea. They're treating it like it's just the same product, it's the same platform, but the licensing deals separate it. I'm guessing that's what they're doing. But I mean, I agree. It's not just a hand wave away. Okay, no, it's fine. Just have The Crew too. It's like, no, I bought The Crew. I want The Crew. You don't get to just take it away. And I understand before some people get in here and they're like, well, Luke, technically that's how the EULA works and that's how it's worked in the games industry is you're buying a license. I agree that's how it's worked historically. That doesn't mean I have to like it, you know? I agree that's how it works. I don't have to support it or like it or say it's cool. Like, I want it to be different. That's my perspective. Is it possible for a game to be both, as demonstrated by Valve when it overwrote Counter-Strike Global Offensive with Counter-Strike 2, but that was a direct replacement handed out for free, while you can still play CSGO by reverting to an older build and playing on community servers? Moreover, if the point of Ubisoft's sale was indeed to allow players of The Crew to jump ship, or indeed car, then this doesn't appear to have been made clear by Ubisoft at the time. Anyway, Guimond then points out that, quote, all video game publishers are faced with the issue of changing or ending services. You provide a service, but nothing is written in stone. And at some point, the service may be discontinued. Nothing is eternal. And we are doing our best to make sure that things go well for players and buyers, because obviously support for all games cannot last forever. And I think this is the thing. This is the conflation that happens whenever we talk about this thing. It's like, you wouldn't expect them to support the game forever. No, what's being asked most of the time is for like some alternative to be offered, whether that is private servers, whether it's peer-to-peer stuff, whether it's community servers that they host and pay for, just something. I pointed to the example of a game I played like crazy back in the day, which was Stronghold Crusader. Stronghold Crusader allows you to just do peer-to-peer stuff, just have like a LAN party and just play that way. They don't have to support that game. That game came out in like what, 2001 or something, 2002? Like, just do that. Just do that. Like, give us the option to play it. I understand. Well, what about the security concerns of playing peer-to-peer? Yeah, it's always a concern. It's also a risk when you Google something and click on a link. Yeah, but you're an adult. You'll figure it out. You'll be okay. I think it really, when you start to see people kind of creating straw men to attack, and it's like, oh, so you want Ubisoft to support the game forever. No, that's not what I said. I said we want an option so the thing I bought doesn't just disappear. I want there to be some possible way for me to play the thing I bought. I understand it may not be the same like in its heyday, like you buy or you play a shooter and there's a ton of players online when you first buy it, but later in its lifespan the player numbers drop, so it's harder to find matches. That's just a reality of reality. I mean, that's of course going to happen, but I do think that there's something to be said for so that is an element, but I think it's really disingenuous when people take what you're saying and then try to twist it into something you're not saying to then attack it, because that's just building a straw man so that you can beat it down easier. What's being asked for with the Stop Killing Games movement is for some way of the product you purchase still being functional. We understand that it's unreasonable for you to support a game perpetually, which is why that's not what's being asked for or demanded or requested, however you want to phrase it. And when somebody like intentionally misrepresents it, I just think it's really disingenuous. Like, they know what they're doing. They know what they're like. Say what you will about Yves Guillemot. Say what you will about him. This is not a dumb man. Like, you don't build a company from nothing into a multi-billion-dollar corporation spanning the globe unless you're fairly sharp. Okay? I don't know about his kids. I don't know about his nephews or nieces or cousins or whatever that are also in executive leadership positions. But I do think if you build a company from nothing into a multi-billion-dollar international conglomerate, you probably know what you're doing. You're probably a pretty sharp dude. So I don't believe for a second that he like, oh, they want us to support games forever. I don't think so. I don't think that's what, I don't think he actually believes that's what the movement is saying. I think he's trying to defend where he's at. Because I'm sure a licensing deal to keep Lamborghinis in the crew forever instead of just a hard-gated date cutoff, I'm sure that's way more expensive and cuts into the bottom line, and that's not ideal. So he'd rather negotiate a deal that has a set expiration date and just do that, just do that. Now he failed upwards. For him, what's interesting, I don't know if you know this. I mentioned this on stream once, and people thought it was funny. Yves Guillemot, the Guillemot family, actually, they are kind of a powerhouse in the games industry. And funnily enough, the Guillemot family, the brothers, have founded multiple different companies over the years. And you know this company, GameLoft? GameLoft was founded in 1999 by Michel Guillemot, one of the 5 founders of Ubisoft. What? Yeah. Yves' brother, who I'm sure is a nice guy, little scary looking. Little scary look. I'm just gonna be real. Very nice guy, I'm sure. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. I feel like once you're a multi-billionaire, I get to comment on your looks. I feel like that's fair. That's fair game. If I'm ever a multi-billionaire, I feel like you guys get to make fun of whatever you want about me. It's fair. Yeah. But he he started GameLoft and blew that up into a massive company. So it's just the Guillemot family, they were able to build out multiple multi-billion-dollar game companies out of France through like the late 90s into the 2000s. And yeah, they were just a powerhouse family, I guess. It's worth noting here, Stop Killing Games does not demand unceasing support for games by publishers. In its website FAQ, Stop Killing Games states, quote, "It is in favor of publishers ending support for a game whenever they choose. What we are asking for is they implement an end-of-life plan to modify or patch the game so they can run it on customers' systems with no further support from the company being necessary." Yes. And I understand the game may not be the same as it was unsupported versus supported. Before anybody's like, it's going to be different. Yes, I understand. What we're saying is, like, before you shut off World of Warcraft in 20 years, if it somehow ever dies, like, before you shut off World of Warcraft, allow for private servers. Like, put that in. I understand it won't be as maybe massive and cool and crazy as the public ones that you have now, but just something, just something. That's what's being asked. And again, whenever somebody, like, you're making a very clear, simple statement like that, something that is in the FAQ that in, 2 sentences clearly explains what is being asked for, but then you still have people intentionally misrepresenting it to attack that straw man. That's when they're being disingenuous, you know. That's what I'm saying. In fairness to Ubisoft, it has claimed that such safeguards will be put in place for The Crew 2, which Guimond likewise pointed to in his response. Quote, "We also announced that the game would be available offline in the future so that players could continue to play it. So this is an issue that we've been dealing with," which, yes, in case you were not aware, they did say that they want to put in offline modes for The Crew 2 so that, you know, this issue doesn't happen again. So they are taking steps to deal with it. It's apparently too late for The Crew 1, but they apparently already have like testing happening for this offline mode, and they hope to have it out by the end of this year. So I hope that that is the new standard. I hope that is what they're doing and that they actually are going to stick to it. That's the hope. But yes, that is their plan, according to their public statements. Guimond concludes by reiterating the point about services having a shelf life. Quote, "The lifespan of a piece of software, whenever there is a service component, eventually services may be discontinued because eventually the software may become obsolete over time. A lot of the tools become obsolete after 10 or 15 years down the line. They're no longer available. And that is why we release a new version. So we have version 2 and version 3, but clearly this is a far-reaching issue and we are working on it." Yeah, I think the industry is just changing. And it's why I think, you know, something like Stop Killing Games is just good because it starts the conversation. You're getting like investors at a shareholder meeting asking the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company these questions about it. And it started as a little petition online. And the whole point of the petition is to get the conversation started and start things happening. And now you're getting the CEO directly responding to it. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of those petitions, is to get things moving. And so what started as just people signing a piece of paper, digital paper, I guess, is now leading to direct confrontations and discussions within shareholder meetings. Like, that's the point. That's how we know this is working. So it's good to see. It's good to see. And already, I mean, like I said, they claim to be adding offline modes to The Crew 2 and to some of their other products. And so the hope is that this has impact, not just for Ubisoft, but for other companies as well. You know, that's the hope. That's the hope. Yeah. Sorry, Thor. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. He took my